or two before a few more people join, and then we'll get started. Okay, well, we will make a start. This is being recorded, so if anyone wants to catch up on my start, then I can do, but we won't be missing much. So, good morning, everyone. So, hopefully you've joined the right webinar. We will be speaking around Freshservice and the enterprise service management side of the tool this morning. We've got some customers, some partners, and myself, Keith, on board, and we're looking forward to just discussing our approach to this. So I will be your host moving forwards. Whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, I'll let you guys decide by the end of the call. But yeah, my name's Keith. I'm a senior account manager within Freshworks, been with Freshworks for 4 years now, predominantly selling Freshservice to the wider customers. So I've been involved in that transition from Freshservice being a traditional ITSM tool to now a fully fledged sort of enterprise service management grade product, where we are seeing a lot of adoption through the enterprise service management tool with Freshservice for business teams through the workspaces. I want to make sure that we try and make this as interactive as possible. So ask some questions at the bottom in the Q&A, and we have Michael to interrupt me and ask those questions. If we cannot answer them on the call, we will certainly take them away and make sure we get you those answers. Finally, I do like a dad joke, so just to sort of break some ice on the call, my favorite dad joke of all time is, what do you call a man with no knees? It's Tony. Yeah, I will just let that sink in while I move on to the next slide and let the guests introduce themselves on that note. So just from left to right, Anne-Marie, would you like to go first?
Sure. Good morning, everybody. My name is Anne-Marie, and I'm the Finance Training and Engagement Officer at Strathclyde University.
I'm Kenneth Anderson. As you can see on screen, I am an applications analyst and developer. A very uninspiring job title, but ultimately I'm one of the main admins for our Freshservice within the University of Strathclyde.
Morning, everyone. My name is Andrew Birchall. I'm the Senior IT Service Delivery Manager at RWK Goodman. We're a top 100 law firm based across the South and in London. And we introduced Freshservice to our business 12 months ago.
And hi, everyone. I'm Sunil Dougal, so I'm the CRO for Accession. Accession is an IT and enterprise service management consultancy, and of course, a partner of Freshworks. Our experience is very much into extending the benefits of some of the best practice in IT out into the broader business for case management, workflow management, automation solutions.
Thanks very much. So obviously we've asked Uni of Strathclyde and RWK Goodman to come on board because they are utilizing enterprise service management workspaces. If not, that would be a really bad error. But just to set the scene, like when we say workspaces, we're talking around outside of IT. So those services that serve the wider business, right? So the traditional teams like HR, finance, facilities. Kenny, could I just go to you in terms of a couple of the workspaces that you've got set up within Uni of Strathclyde?
Yes, of course. So our predominant one is the IT department, which also, because of the way in which our directorates are set up, also encompasses the library. So it's a very interesting one at that point in time. But we've also got a very robust, fully fledged workspace for our finance help desks. And that's why Anne-Marie is joining us today, because she is very well placed to go and talk about that. We are also in the process of setting up a couple more workspaces because we've found that they work really nicely. We are looking to go and bring on our student experience and also the payroll section of HR. So those are in the works. That's how much we like it. We are still continuing to go and do it after the first one.
Thanks very much. And Andrew, same question in terms of the workspaces that you've got set up currently?
Absolutely. So similarly, we have a traditional IT workspace, but all streams of IT participate. So that's the service desk, infrastructure, development teams, and the training team. So that works really well for issues that arise from our users, where is it something that's broken or is it a lack of knowledge? So we're able to collaborate internally within IT in that fashion. But in addition to that, from the outset, there was a need for a facilities workspace. As with any other law firm, facilities is important from a file retention, file storage, etc. perspective, and from a maintenance check perspective. So we've introduced that for them. They have scheduled tasks, scheduled maintenance. But again, if anything relates to the IT system, so is it that a file needs storing, but the IT system's not working? Tickets works can flow between the facilities team and IT and back and forth. There's no need for an end user to worry about, oh, which system do we log this with? We named our environment Help Me, and whether or not a user needs help with facilities or IT, they just reach out to Help Me. And we're just on the cusp of launching our newest workspace, which is a risk and compliance workspace. Again, within the legal space, matters need to be checked, conflict of interest needs to be checked. And when things don't go to plan, is it that it's a system error, which then gets passed over to IT, or is that a process error that then needs to get passed to the risk team to handle? And again, it's in a single framework that we've named Help Me.
Okay, thank you very much, everyone. So we just move on in terms of like what are we going to be looking at today. So just in a little bit more detail. So a couple of slides just on the modern employee experience. So there's a couple of sort of users that need to be served from an IT perspective. It's the wider business as well as the end users. So I mention that because a lot of the inquiries that we get at the minute from business teams from Freshservice are, or the IT team have been using Freshservice. We can see a wider use case for HR or facilities or procurement coming on board. Can we have a demo? And then it's generally, we've been using a mailbox. We've got multiple email addresses set up. We cannot track the metrics. We cannot categorize it efficiently, and we're losing requests through the email black hole that is. If you don't pick it up and manage it yourself, then it is going to be a very hard task. So that's probably the main sort of criteria from an internal sort of, you know, a service agent. But then from a end user point of view, think of my own personal experience when like trying to buy shoes. My shoe size is size 12. I can never find a size 12 shoe. If I cannot get that there and then, I will just go somewhere else. And it's very similar with end user experience, where they will then start to create their own way of doing things that's applicable to them, that's efficient to them. If they don't have an easy to adopt an efficient standardized process across the board, then of course you got everything that goes on after that with hard to track and managing loads of different tickets between multiple different teams. So we needed to be conversational, we needed to be AI, we needed to be applicable to various different generations, various different job roles and things like that. And that's something that we're doing within Fresh today. Just going into a little bit more detail around sort of some of the current states that we see with our client base. So those that do have multiple service desks or multiple tools within the support structure, they have multiple service portals. And Kenny, to your point, where they're don't know where to go to, and there's one unified experience, then that's a game changer from my point of view. Just being able to structure that information, emails back and forth, rubbish in, rubbish out. The first response time is then immediately reduced if we have that information in play. Delicate processes can go in and out of systems and roundabouts and in and out of people as well. So, and that could only be one man deep, or woman deep. And if they leave, go on holiday or leave the business, then it's who's going to pick that up. So again, standardizing that as much as possible, so someone can just come in and it doesn't matter who's running the process. It's done automatically. Confused employees leads into the multiple service portals and everything else I said before. And then the productivity is on the back end from my point of view. So being able to gain real sort of actionable insights from the data that you're getting with the way that you've set up the front end to be able to sort of categorize that and report on that effectively allows you to justify extra spend for extra headcount, extra spend for more tools, extra spend for justifying buying ASM, for instance, and for more heads on that. So yeah, that's everything that we're sort of doing from a today point of view.
I do just want to pick up on what you're saying there, Keith, about the multiple support portals and not being able to find things. The idea that the support portals can have all the solution articles on it, and you go in there and you type in what you're looking for, and if a user can get that information straight away, find the relevant how-to guide, and get their problem fixed without even raising a ticket. You don't get a better response time than 0.
Exactly,
So
Kenneth. I'd absolutely echo that sentiment. That's something that we've lent on really heavily. And it's, yeah, really improved service.
Thanks, gents. Moving on to sort of ESM and how it then sort of eradicates those problems that came before. Like some of the main ones for me, like we look at the end user experience, that Microsoft Teams and Slack integration is a big game changer with the virtual agent. That and then adding Freddy AI in terms of the self-service ability for end users is really enhancing it. That comes with a caveat that we do recommend that your knowledge base is up to speed and you do have the data that's there to be able to sort of find and then push that out. So it's not a case of AI does everything for you. It is an enabler at the end of the day. I do believe it won't replace us. It will enable us to do better. So that is something that really needs to be consulted with our solutions engineers, and really so we can advise on best practices. So if there's any questions on that, I'd highly recommend sort of reaching out to your account manager and asking for, maybe we do adoption plans as well as, you know, generic demos on how other customers have done that. And then in terms of the cohesive employee experience, like Andrea, I know that you've utilized the JML process within Freshservice. Is that something you could touch on in terms of how that workflow interacts with multiple teams and stakeholders?
Absolutely, yes. We had a fragmented process previously, in that some data would be stored in a spreadsheet, some data would be stored in an old ITSM tool, and it just wasn't joined up. And emails were coming in and out from different people to the new joiner. We've deployed the JML process, and there's a single interface for the HR team to update all the requirements, and then from there we're able to move it forward. We're able to obtain equipment authorizations from IT leaders and from team leaders. We're able to communicate with a new user before they join, and it doesn't fall foul of any of our mail filtering solutions. And it kind of brings the new colleague on board in a really positive way before they've even walked through the door. And it really helps us collaborate across, you know, whether it's just in the IT team or others, to make sure that first day really lands well for the new user.
Yeah, 100%. Like that stuff that isn't highlighted in product functionality, and that feeling of actually valued and being able to get your laptop on day one and being able to start your job on day one rather than having to look over someone's shoulder is a big impression that you can lend to the employee experience. Yeah, good point.
Keith, can I just add a point here as well, if that's okay? Just there is a really, I think, an important, and it'd be interesting to hear from the customers as well on this, but there's a really important side benefit associated with this kind of program, which is that it forces organizations to understand and define their processes. So where they are reliant on institutional knowledge, mailboxes, spreadsheets, etc., you know, that process is often difficult to define and write down. Having to follow a workflow in Freshservice, right, will enforce that, and that then allows you to baseline metrics for service improvements in the future. It's very difficult to deliver service improvements when you're not able to measure it, and mailboxes and spreadsheets are practically impossible, I would suggest, to measure. So actually, you know, the process of this in itself offers you a platform then for future improvements.
I'd agree with that. Whilst personally, I'm not involved in managing any of the individual departments that use Freshservice, so I don't care too much about their individual metrics. What I have seen is an increase in our customer satisfaction score coming back. We are seeing an increased number of tickets raised, but that then corresponds with an even greater increase in satisfactory outcomes from the customer satisfaction score. So people are finding it easier to come to us for help. We are being able to measure more of the work that we're doing because we are ingesting all of our emails. We are then creating tickets for it, and we are actually able to track what our staff are spending time on. We know at all levels, we can just see that people are happier with it, and we've got the stats out of our customer satisfaction to say yes, you're doing fantastic. We have also, and I'm going to be blowing our trumpet a little bit here, we have had CSE accreditation for a number of years at the University of Strathclyde, and each year it just gets better and better. And a lot of that is how easy it is to go and flag up issues and how quickly they get resolved at the same time. And Freshservice is a big part of that. You email help@Strath. Ticket gets ingested. It looks at who's emailed in, what department they're related to. Oh, you're in the engineering department. We're going to send you to engineering IT. Oh, you're a student. We're going to send you to the normal student help desk. And it just, all these moving parts in the background through the workflows just allows for a really quick response time at that point.
Yeah.
Not going to lie, it has had its downsides. We wanted to try and introduce the fresh chat at one point in time, and we've done a pilot for that. But people were so used to really speedy email responses, they didn't care about chat because we were, falling victim to our own success at that point in time.
I'm glad you finished with a positive because you started to worry me on the webinar.
Oh, don't worry. Going with the positives.
All
We're all
good, all
good here.
So if I build this slide out, the state of service management, I think like everyone gets the gist where we've talked about it multiple times, where there's multiple channels that employees have at their fingertips to be able to reach multiple teams. On the back end, then there's multiple sort of like if I look at the HR systems with Workday or SAP SuccessFactors, there's document management with Google Drives and Microsoft Forms, and then payroll items and stuff like that. So there's numerous and complex, and the amount of times, and no fault of anyone's in terms of the complexity that people do, just because people go off doing their own things, and it's something to your point in terms of being able to standardize that process with some governance. And that brings me into like a phrase I've been using recently with regards to ESM. So it's the democratization of digital. And what does that basically mean? It's basically a fancy way of saying it gives the enterprise service management an easier way of adopting the digital processes. And there may be a certain platform called that rhymes with like Nervous Cow, for instance, that I think we do this a hell of a lot better. And I'll tell you the reasons why. So big or sort of legacy global IT platforms are there and successful because they do absolutely everything. In order to do absolutely everything, you need to do a lot of configuration. You need then a team to do all that configuration, and that team usually sits within an IT team or in a third-party MSP. If you wanted to raise a change for one of your teams in, say, finance, for Anne-Marie, for instance, you would then need to raise that change with IT. IT would then need to review that change on a multitude of other changes being raised at the same time and decide whether or not it's even going to be implemented. If it is to be implemented, then it's going to be a time frame that's out of your control. There might be a cost associated with that. There's also obviously a cost to the team that has been set up, but obviously the cost to maybe doing that work as well will be cost charged to departments. With Freshservice business teams, you can literally do it within the workspace, within your own workspace. If I take the finance workspace in Anne-Marie's team, for instance, Anne-Marie, could you just speak a little bit around sort of that control you have within your own finance workspace, sort of within that global settings of a Freshworks instance or Freshservice instance?
Thank you. But because I'm a support admin, thanks to Kenny, who's able to teach me things, it just means that I can become a barrier between my team and finance overall and his team if we can resolve queries ourselves within the team. With us, Finance Help Desk joined in 2022, and we had student finance and procurement team join us in 2024. And just by having those more teams on Fresh with us, we can share information quickly, seeing the status of a query, any notes, the progression. If someone's sick or on annual leave, it's not sitting waiting for that person to come back, which is what would happen if, say, somebody contacted someone into a personal mailbox, which is how a lot of things were done beforehand. But it's just being able to share information quickly and easily. And if it's, especially for us being in finance, a lot of it is confidential. It's kept within that confidential netting. It's not seen overall. And that's thanks to Kenny and the hard work he's done on setting up all these areas.
And Anne-Marie, what about like the terminologies used within the finance team? Obviously, you'd be using different terminologies than what an IT team would be. Have you set up like categorizations and stuff applicable to the finance team within your workspace?
Yes, we've categories and subcategories as well, just for easy filing and it's great for reporting and analytics as well. If we wanted to drill down and see, just for me, example, how many training inquiries I've received this month, we can quite easily run reports and break that down just to see. And it's really, really helpful as well for other departments. And that's where I think the cogs are turning, that other departments university-wide are wanting to come on board now or find out more about it, because they want to get on board with this reporting because it's so quick and easy to get that information.
Awesome. Thank you very much for sharing. Appreciate it. Yeah, so like the recommendation best practice is to have the governance in place, understand your operating model to be able to scale effectively. And then once that request comes in for a new workspace, you understand the teams that's going to carry that work out, whether that be within your own IT team, whether you pay our managed service or professional services team or Sunil from an accession point of view, that can then kick off and configure a workspace applicable to whatever team that needs to be associated with. And those business processes can be built within the workspace, and they can also consolidate it across multiple workspaces, like we mentioned with the joiners, movers, and leavers like last time. And hopefully, if you get that right, then this beautiful slide that is now up is then a replication of what a workspace would look like from an employee experience. So we do have the ability, obviously, unified experience, so one platform of Freshservice and multiple workspaces integrated on the back end, but whatever sort of within the ecosystem of your IT estate. And then on the front end, it's very much around that Slack and Teams integration of the big ones. There's other channels on the roadmap that are coming up, and I'm conscious this is being recorded, so I'm not committing to anything because I'm a sales guy. But it's very much around like Freddy Copilot. That is now available within our enterprise plan as part of the plan, rather than a separate add-on cost that it used to be. So the self-service element of Freddy AI is now included in Freddy Agent. And I think if you're unaware of that on the call and you're using Freshservice Enterprise, I'd ask your account manager or CSM to enable that for you. So then you can start to get an idea of how the self-service is really sort of adding value to your end users. Again, one of the easiest ways to get that up and running is getting your knowledge base in line and in sync if that's something that you currently are working on. And that leads nicely onto our Freddy Copilot as well, where that can then build the knowledge base articles. About 80% of the crux, as I said before, it's an enabler, so it does all the hard work for you, and then you fine tune it and then upload it as well.
I've found that to be such a time saver at that point in time, Keith. Just being able to get it to go and build a really nice framework for an article. I'll go in and I'll go and tweak things. But the thing that really struck me with the Freddy Copilot solution article generation is we've had an issue at one point where there'd been an issue with a Windows update and people needed to physically come onto campus in order to go and get the update to happen. And when I tried to create a solution article for it, Freddy had realized that there was a similar response going out and a whole bunch of tickets about this, and pulled text from that referenced literal buildings on our campus and popped it in. It was obviously not just pulling it from random web pages. It was looking at what we did. It was looking at the model for Strathclyde and built a personalized solution article at that point in time. And that was one of my turning points to going, actually, this looks like a very handy tool. And yeah, you do need to have decent knowledge base. And if you can go and use a tool to go and get you 3/4 of the way there in an article, that's a big time saver.
Yeah, definitely. You mentioned linking in the other systems. That's some of the integration roadmap is just as important for this ESM rollout. So being able for procurement, finance, linking into the ERP systems and bringing that information into Freshservice at the touch of a button and having one single pane of a view of what's needed depending on the request, as well as the HR linking into the account directory as well as the HR tool is a big game changer at the minute. That so 360, like for me as an account manager, it's very important to understand the wider ecosystem that's within our customers, to then be able to advise them where Freshservice could fit. Because as much as I would like to think Freshservice isn't probably the most important tool that are in customers these days yet, the ERP, HCM are the sort of big boys of the the IT estate, and being able to sort of enhance the user experience is really important for that. So then, and we go into this sort of ESM transformation. Like, what does it give you? I think we've touched on some of these, but like higher satisfaction scores for employees. Like Andrew, we touched on the JML process, and the better employee onboarding experience then obviously kicks the employee off to a really great start. Like, oh, this company really have got their I would swear, but something together. And then yeah, they would just kick them on, give them motivated, and keep the motivation pushing on. The significant reduction in support tickets. So the self-service, the deflection rates that we're seeing are ridiculous in terms of like immediate save for self-service and being able for people to go and do the job that they want to do without having to rely on anyone else. So being able to get that information and those little annoying tasks that are password resets, or I'm logged out of this, or how do I raise a ticket for that? That is what's really sort of game changing from an employee experience.
And from our perspective, Keith, there's a particular workflow that we've built that's been super helpful. So we're a UK-based only organisation, but our lawyers occasionally travel to other countries, either for holiday or for work. And there's regulatory controls around this. And we've put in place a conditional access to prevent users from working abroad. So we had a problem as to how could we provide our users with correct access when they are abroad, but also make sure that the right people are involved in the decision-making process. So we built out a standard workflow and a service request form where the end user requests access for a period of time, etc. If the time frame falls out of scope, then it's approved by HR, and then there's no need for a service desk analyst to remember to add Joe Bloggs to a security group and then remove Joe Bloggs from a security group on the end of the trip. It's all done completely automated, and our service desk staff don't even need to touch the ticket. And it doesn't matter if Joe Bloggs remembers to submit a ticket at 2 a.m. on a Sunday morning. It just happens, and that's really produced efficiency, good control, and a great user experience.
Yeah, 100%. You mentioned a big point there of the exit strategy, putting time domains on the tickets and being able to close things down. It's not something. It's always an afterthought, or it always has been an afterthought until now. But like being able to offboard employees correctly and save all those like where the assets, making sure that you acquire for the assets. So link it into the asset management tool, whether that be Fresh Service Discovery, Probe, or SCCM, or Device 42 as well, which is another selling avenue that I will not go into on this webinar. But if you need to know more, there's webinars coming up on that. But to my point is like being able to build those processes that are like the other one is the RCA report from an engineering point of view, from an IT side of things. Like no one wants to do that report because they're on call. Being able to create processes where you can offboard employees, you can build RCA reports automatically, and then you can put time domains on niche workflows like you mentioned there, Andrew, is like a real game changer. And again, it goes to the flexibility that you can do within specific workspaces that then don't need to be applied across the full organization.
Keith, can I just to underline Andrew's point? So one of the real benefits around having a portal where you have multiple services is that at the point of data capture, you are able to capture a minimum data set that allows you then to automate workflows, as Andrew has just described. And one of the challenges with more traditional forms of communication, email or phone calls, for example, is that actually that data capture often is lacking. So, you may need to go back to the end user to ask more questions. You may not be able to have enough information to pass it through to the right resolver group, or indeed, as Andrew has evidenced here, right, fulfill whatever that request is without actually anybody having to touch it at all. So it really gives you an opportunity to drive efficiencies at that very first point of contact.
100%. We've got the SCIM provisioning, so it knows who Joe Bloggs manager is. We've got the Entra ID orchestration, so it's got direct access and secure and authorized access to make the necessary security group changes. Yeah, it's been a real win-win.
Yeah, the ability on these forms to go customize them to get the data you need. It prevents what I've been referring to as email ping pong.
Yeah.
You get a bit of data, you go back to the requester going, okay, and then that means I need this, and now I need this, and just this email back and forth. It eliminates that completely. What I really like on the forms you can set up is the conditional drop downs. We have a one called a request for change in Freshservice. Someone wants to make a change to Freshservice. Drop down list, and you go, okay, I'd like to make a change to a group's membership. Bunch of different options appear. What group is it? What do you want changed about it? You want to create a new service item. What's the name of the item? Any automations you want? Who's it going to be assigned to? And all of these independent things, so that the number of forms that the user has to initially look at is reduced, because finding the right form can always be a big problem. So if you're able to go and bundle them together, it makes life a lot easier. So you're not looking through pages and pages of service items, and then just capture all that data, and then you can use them in the workflows. We use for our request for change, if someone wants to change group membership, we've got a custom object with the owner of every group. You select that option, you say you want to make a change to the networking team. It'll automatically fire off an approval for that change to the owner of that group, unless the request is from the owner of the group, in which case it goes, no need for the request to go off. The requester is the approver. Do it anyway. And we've just automated that all in the background, so that you don't need to spend your time going into the ticket. You can't do what you need to do initially. You need to go through these boring business as usual steps before you can get to the crux of it. Automate that out, make the most of your employees' time.
Yeah. It's interesting, Kenny. I mean, it's a great example. There are also, some perhaps simpler sort of things that you can do as well to drive user behavior. So, for example, we have a customer who have decided that if somebody is unable to work, they're in finance and they can't access the finance system, for example, the first question on the form is, are you able to do your job? Yes or no. If the answer is no, immediately it comes up with call the service desk, because they have decided that that is the way they want to resolve those sorts of end user challenges. So there is no form for them to complete. It's as simple as, this is the behavior we want. This is what you need to do at this point. So, it gives you so much flexibility, doesn't it, in terms of the way in which you engage with your consumer groups, across whichever business department.
So much, and it just makes it a lot easier as well, because I hate having to go through pages and pages of service items, and if they can be smushed together, so you're right, I want it in this area, and just let things filter through. And sometimes it's not making the request, sometimes it is delivering the information that's required, but by getting all that built up, you just streamline things and just make life for everyone easier. And that's always been my main statement that I make for anyone with Freshservice is, I want to make your life easier. I'm not here to put barriers in. I'm here to find the problems and make them go away. And I could go on and on about that, what I did with the major incident process, but this is a time-limited webinar, and I don't want to go and just monopolize everything. Keith would start growling at me.
Yeah, I'll give you miserable than usual. Of course, it's it's we talk about the unified user experience and how that enhances the productivity from a workflows point of view, but from a management and business team leader point of view, it's important too. We mentioned the reporting is obviously one of the biggest things, but all these lead into various things. I'm just interested, yeah, Kenny and Andrew, you're in those sort of leadership roles from a management of the tool point of view. Do these points resonate with you? Is there anything you could elaborate on with regards to some of the points that are raised, or any other points that would be applicable?
I'm going to let Anne-Marie field this one.
I'll start. See, with productivity, simple things like we have canned responses, or you can create a template. So like with procurement, new suppliers coming on board, it's the same response that you always send out. And what we found was sometimes you're typing the same thing every time when you're responding. So with setting up a template or even just the canned response. It's just literally hit reply, insert, send, 2 minutes. Whereas beforehand you would have been typing out this in the same way with attaching the form and things. You can actually have that all set up into the template. And definitely with higher visibility, we can see if we need to adjust SLAs. If during like registration, which is quite a busy time for the university, do we need to change our response times, and do we need a more overall visual on certain key areas during that time, just to make sure that students are responded to within the SLA?
Yeah, it's a good point. It sort of like adds a question that based on, if I think from my own time about joining uni, the application process at the start of the year up to when you start through the start of September, and obviously the famous Freshers Week. But like, do you have trends analysis and stuff from the finance side of things where you go, right, we're going to get a peak here. This is what happened last year or last quarter, and then are you able to act on that?
Yes, there's every September and every January, because in January we have the other registration side of things. It's usually the August to September is the busiest time. Excuse me. So yeah, we can plan ahead for that and keep an eye out. And again, the reporting is just so helpful.
I do think as well that the safeguard compliance is something that the workspaces handle really well, because it means that only the agents who are enabled within the finance workspace can see the finance workspace tickets. They are not visible to all of the fresh service agents, just the ones that have had that delegated. But then you can go that step further with the restricted groups as well. So we've got a number of restricted groups within the our IT workspace. We want, generally speaking, all of our IT agents to be able to see all of the IT tickets. It means that if a student comes up to the IT help desk and says, I've had this problem and I've reported it and I've not had an update, they're able to go in and have a look. They're able to go and, prod the agent to go and find out what's happening, or read what's there in order to go and help the person in front of them. But you don't want that for everything. Our compliance team don't want it seen there. Certain cybersecurity issues, probably don't want those just to be visible to everyone at that point in time. So being able to have 90% global visibility, but to be able to pinch off things in order to go and safeguard compliance, as well as spinning out into entirely separate workspaces in order to safeguard compliance, has been incredibly useful. And when you have got the other workspaces, the empower autonomy is very much what I've been trying to do for Anne-Marie, is going, okay, what is it that you need to do where you're not going to be beholden to the type of templates we're using in the IT? You want different categories? Great, we will set that up for you. We will make it so that these categories are only visible in the finance workspace. We will have additional options on there. We will have additional workflows. You want your things to work differently? Great, let's make that happen. Because if you want to bring other people on, you've got to be flexible. Different areas are different priorities. You can't just go, I was here first, so we're doing it my way.
Andrew, just an opportunity for yourself. Just are there any additional points that you find useful?
Absolutely, and actually I'm going to take a slightly different tack, and that's on the productivity piece. We've got a reasonably new team of service desk agents. We had a recruitment drive, and trying to ensure that they were engaged with providing our end users with not just good service, but resolving their issues. So the gamification element that sits in the back of Fresh across each workspace actually is really it's really struck a chord. Many of our young guys are gamers themselves, and they look at that leadership board. And when it gets to a Friday afternoon, when maybe they might not be as productive as you would hope, especially when the boss is working from home that day, you hear them on the separate Teams chat channels, egging one another on. Say, "Oh, I can get to 300 points, but you can't." And it might seem like a trivial feature, but harnessing positive mindsets of our service desk staff, this has really worked really well.
Awesome. Good to know. That point system's interesting. For
Mm.
sure.
I'm not going to weigh in on that. It was the topic of my undergraduate dissertation was achievements in video games and prolonging engagement. So literally have written 8,000 words on the matter. We'll leave it at that.
Again, it'll probably be repeating ourselves just after the good conversation that we've entailed. I don't want to repeat just what's on the slides and stuff, but why choose Freshservice for business teams? It just empowers the end user. We can literally create a unified experience for employees, make a lot better of a job of linking the processes on the back end for the support tools. I have a lot of customers that come to me and they go, they want to consolidate, they want to save costs, these automation, all these terms, but it's always for another reason, and it's the main reason is for the business that you're successful in is to do the work more effectively in there and make sure that there's less noise from these support tools. And that is obviously meant in a good way, not as keep quiet, you're making too much noise, but it's just that these are fragmented systems. We need to streamline these. So
there's an interesting thing you've got there with the AI powered employee experience there, Keith.
Yeah.
Anne-Marie, how many ingested inboxes do we have in finance at the moment? Approximately. How many ingested emails do we have? A dozen?
10 or 11?
Yeah, okay. Quite often, a student will email multiple finance departments at once, and then they all come in as tickets. And historically, you didn't know who was going to be working on stuff before they were ingested. Now that they're all in the system together, and Freddie goes, "Oh, look, here's a bunch of similar tickets." When you see this, a ticket in each of the different groups from this person, you can get them, just smush them together, and then one person who's meant to work on it can work on it, and you avoid the someone else is picking it up issue. And just the benefit of Freddie being able to flag, I found a bunch of similar ones. This could be really handy. I think that is a really simple yet very smooth and easy process at that point in time. Just as a, hey, look, the AI system works.
Yeah, got it. Just
Sorry.
additional, like, why choose Fresh? Like, so, sorry, did someone have a point they wanted to raise there before?
Is it okay? Can I just add something
Yeah,
about?
of course, Anne-Marie. Sorry, my bad. Go ahead.
No, you're fine. Sorry, I'm so quiet. And Kenny and I have just tested this quite recently. So being in finance and being in university, we do get a lot of tickets from overseas students, and it may not be in our language, it'll be in their home language, and that could be from anywhere. And I know there's Google Translate, but I'm sure those of us that have used that, it doesn't work. Sometimes some words will get lost in the translation. But with Freddie Copilot and with the help of my flatmate, who's actually fluent in Mandarin, so we picked the most difficult language to try it out with Freddie. It not only did it translate the wording of his email, it actually understood the tone. And as part of when you do the summary, it explained what the ticket content was, but also the tone behind the message. And that was really, really beneficial because with my team, they're not having to go to another platform to then try and Google Translate something, work out, is that translation correct? Is it picking up the right things? It's all done again within the system. We do think that there's a way that when you reply, but we haven't touched that yet. As long as we get it coming in, we can go from there. But it's especially anybody who's joined us today, if you have business in other countries, again, it's just helping somebody in their own language as well. It's just bridging that gap, yet again, within the platform.
Thank you very much for sharing. Yeah, so like Freshservice obviously started as an ITSM tool, and there's a reason I'm sharing a slight history. But when I would sell a few years ago and business teams wasn't there, it was very hard to justify wider teams utilizing a ticket management system that is you have to pay for an IT agent. So commercially it just wasn't viable. Then they would look at simpler plans or Freshdesk, and I don't know, there may be some people on the call today that are utilizing Freshdesk as a mailbox, which is fine. It works, right? It's a ticket management system. But also, like, it doesn't give you that consolidated approach. It doesn't give you the governance from a overall enterprise-wide side of things. And business teams enables both, right? It gives you that workspace like you had before with maybe a separate tool, but it also then sits within that governance and compliance for the overall sort of settings and standardization of how you want to set the business up. And it's a third of the price of an IT agent, so it makes a lot more sense. But it gives you everything bar the ITIL functions like product problem management, incident management, change management, and things like that. So it's always good to understand where that's come from. So ITSM and then the demand from our wider customers is really what drove the business team's implementation. So delivering modern employee experiences, lots of buzzword jargon, love it. We're going to go through some challenges, and I'm also conscious we have spoken about these. So the challenges overcoming broken employee experiences, like I suppose I'm going to put you guys on the spot. Like, in terms of what we've spoken about, is there anything else in terms of like niche processes that you've come across that were broken and have been, obviously, you know, the idea is that we'd fixed it with Freshservice. Wow. But yeah, so just in terms of any examples like that you could share.
I think a key example, Keith, is, and we have touched on it already, our previous ITSM tool. It was like a game of 20 questions. I'm safe to say that lawyers can be quite demanding individuals to work with. They just want their problem solved. So them either being able to complete a very simple and intuitive form on the interface, or use the Teams channel, the Help Me chatbot that we've deployed, just made that so much easier. And the automation of confirmation emails back, so that they know that somebody's working on it. It's so simple, but it's so effective.
Awesome.
We Keith, have had experience of a pharmaceutical-based organization that runs drugs trials, and in multiple countries all over the world, right? So therefore has to comply with the regulatory requirements that are individual to all of those countries, and they use Freshservice to manage a large proportion of the way those drug trials are carried out, and in particular for any regulatory queries that might come back. So to Anne-Marie's point around a multilingual, right, they might get a query that comes in from, say, China, based on a trial that's being run in China, and therefore they need to be able to respond to that query based on the regulatory framework that exists in China. So, you know, a really interesting and quite challenging use case there, but actually, you know, very industry specific. Just shows the flexibility of the tool set.
Yes. Okay. Yeah, and then obviously solution, implementing enhanced employee experiences. Going to the next challenge is the hidden cost of fragmented support. So I suppose just ask in terms of, like, you know, what was before, whether that be was before business teams or was before Freshservice in your IT. Was there anyone doing mundane tasks that, obviously, you know, we talk about the empowering the employee and making their experience a lot better. If they're coming in and just data key entering all the time, it's going to be a little bit moronic. So any examples of that where you've freed up sort of people's roles and responsibilities and allowed to repurpose?
Email ingestion.
Mhm.
Right off the bat, there's no need to go through the emails and go, oh, this one needs to be loaded onto the system as a ticket. Let me go and copy and paste and retype everything. It's there and you can start working on it. Templates. We have a ticket template for a walk-up quick query. We want to record everything that our staff are doing so that we can justify having staff doing stuff. But if someone just walks up to the desk and spends 5 minutes asking a quick question about how to go and use the room booking or what have you, we've got a ticket template that automatically populates a whole bunch of stuff. We don't need to go back to the user, but we are able to go and say, yeah, staff have spent time working in this particular area. We are getting more queries about room bookings under these quick templates that we've set up. So yeah, there's lots of data entry that we've been able to go and pull out. We've been able to streamline our major incident management process. We've been able to make it that our major incident management process also connects with the on-call rota, where we have an on-call rota for whoever's the incident manager at that point in time, so that when a major incident is declared, they're immediately notified via text message. There's no more scrabbling on different Excel spreadsheets to find out who it is that needs to deal with this right now. It's all handled automatically by the system, and we've got an escalation point in there. If it's not picked up within a certain period of time, it goes out to even more of the incident managers to go and get it picked up. Because, say something really important breaks on a Sunday afternoon when you're in the middle of refereeing a football match and you don't have your phone on you, so you can't. Yeah, I acknowledge that. Don't need to go and wait. It can be picked up within the agreed time limits. And that allows for stronger cross-functional collaboration.
Okay, bang on. We're great minds. That's the one.
Keith, do you mind if I just jump in on this point, right? So at Accession, we have recently, in the last couple of months, actually, done some research work via a Freedom of Information request to local councils and NHS organisations in the UK. And we've had about just under 300 responses. And one of the questions we asked was, does your ITSM solution only serve IT, or do you serve multiple business functions? The data that's come back, 65% of organisations are just serving IT. But of the remaining 35% that are using it across multiple business functions, 70% of those are across 3 or more business functions. So I think the inference here is that if there is a strategy within your organization to use an ESM solution, then actually it can become quite quick and maybe not easy is the right word, but definitely attainable to spread that across multiple functions. So, there is an increasing trend and a huge market opportunity for Freshservice, but an increasing trend to recognize this cross-functional collaboration element. So it's, the market is moving in that direction.
Thanks very much, Sunil. I'll just pause for a second. So we've only got a couple of slides left. I'm conscious of time. So there's a Q&A sort of button where you feel free to sort of type any questions. So just encourage you to ask those questions that are on top of mind if you've lasted this long on the webinar, and we will try to answer it. If not, we will take it away. But the last challenge is just the lack of autonomy within data and privacy. So I think obviously Anne-Marie within a finance space, we've got multiple HR workspaces that are on Freshservice for business teams, but the data and privacy part is something that always gets raised. It's like, where does my data sit and is it secure? And you can set it up that it is only you that sees that data. Even from an IT perspective, like a super user, they would only have the ability to make changes. They wouldn't be able to view any of the details within any of the tickets as well. So like, I feel that is just all about the governance. Again, going back to the processes and the governance and how you set their operating model up, that is right down to that, and how you make controls going forward. And then just my last slide to finish. But before I do, just to the guys on the call, if you were to just sum up business teams in your organization in a couple of sentences, like how would you say it is impacted sort of your way of working as well as your customers' experience?
From our perspective, within our business services department, there's been a lot of talk about how business services departments should collaborate better, but there's never really been a vehicle that we've had to utilize it. So through the drive to improve our IT service delivery, we've also been able to drive improved service delivery for facilities, for risk, and through that vehicle, it's catalyzed this bringing together that we are actually one large team. It sounds a bit cringe, but it's true that we are one team. We're not different siloed organizations within a parent organization. So that's really been powerful for us.
That's great. Thank you, Andrew.
I'd agree with Andrew on that one, because finance is so big. A lot of people outside finance think we're all one, but there's so many different subsections. And now, just with us, student finance and procurement on, we can share information quicker, easier, visibility on where something is sitting. And then, of course, with ingesting all the mailboxes into one place instead of somebody, because somebody used to go into Outlook and assign manually emails to everybody. You can imagine, I've got a big team. And we've also set up in the background that when certain email tickets are raised per department, an agent who's assigned to that department, that ticket is assigned to them straight away. So there isn't, that manual process is just gone. So it's just, yeah, it's a fantastic, quick, easy way.
Thanks very much. Yeah, I think I've echoed this. Just my definition of ESM is just to empower business units to digitize and automate their business processes and capture actionable data, whilst maintaining the necessary level of central oversight and governance from an IT's perspective. So like I mentioned at the top, like halfway through the call, that this really does give, in terms of adoption, it's a lot easier to adopt something if you still have control of what you're doing. If you're then being told to, being cracked around the back with a whip all the time, being told this is what you need to adhere to, you're a lot less likely. I'm definitely a lot less likely to ask my boss to do something. But if you have the ability to create your workflows within a overall structure that is standardized, then there's a lot better adoption. Then linking that into the business value applicable to your workspace, then it's a game changer. So just with that, I'd like to thank Andrew, Kenny, Anne-Marie, and Sunil for joining the call as my guests and for the fruitful conversation that came about. Thank you very much. And then Michael, can you hear us? Are you online? I just wonder if we've got any questions. If not, we'll just close up.
Yeah, perfect. Thanks, Keith. So we did have a question earlier. The question was, it is evident that implementing ESM within an IT help desk is a transformative initiative that helps enhance efficiency. Are there any best practices on approaching building a business case for stakeholder buy-in and sponsorship across different teams?
I'd open that out to the guests on the call first, just to see if there's been any real life examples.
A real life example for me would have been the initial trial process of creating an environment. Build it and they will come, and then demonstrate it. Take the opportunity to leverage the free trial period. And if you ask your account manager nicely, they'll extend it, not indefinitely, but for sufficient time. And just show. The other element of it is that on a couple of slides back, the built-in integrations, many of them are just click next. Building in TeamViewer, building in Teams, building in 365 calendar integrations. They're things that can be done within 2 minutes to show what can be achieved if you're willing to invest time in the more detailed integrations.
Okay, thank you, Andrew. Yeah, go ahead, Michael.
I was going to say, we've got time for one last question before we've got a quick poll that we want to put out as well, but we have one last question. Maybe Keith, you can answer this. We've got a question, how can you keep tickets confidential if the ticket needs to be managed across different workspaces, so i.e. HR and IT?
Yeah, we can create child tickets off the back of parent tickets. So the process will allow you to then segregate and branch off the information that's applicable to that team to be able to then raise a child ticket, but it's always linked back to the parent ticket. And it's dependent on roles and responsibilities and how you set up, but you do have the ability as a business agent to view tickets and take other actions within different workspaces if you are cross collaborative. So there's a couple of ways of doing it, but yeah, that's something that we can definitely demonstrate if we understand the use case to whoever asked that question. Thank you.
Perfect, thanks, Keith. And we should have a poll should magically appear hopefully within the next few seconds by the magic of technology. There we go. If you guys wouldn't mind giving it a little quick answer for us, that would be fantastic. But back over to you, Keith.
Okay. Well, guys, I would encourage you, if you're unaware of business teams or have thought about business teams, jump on a call with your account manager or customer success manager. We'll do a little bit of a discovery just to understand the use case, and then with that, have a demonstration. You can see obviously from the customers that are speaking, it's for various different use cases and niche systems. So anyone that's got a mailbox or that serves the wider sort of employee base, then Freshservice for Business Teams will definitely fit in. But thanks for your attendance, really appreciate it, and yeah, see you on the next one.
Thank you.
Bye.